All right, we're telling your followers that you started a video. Make sure to tell them. Hello, guys. So I wanted to come on here. Where are my questions? I'm just looking. Oh, there we go. And answer some questions to do a little live. I know yesterday we were on here as well. And we were talking all about, let me just set myself up here. We were talking all about just frequently asked questions that some of you guys need some guidance with. So I wanted to come on again, reading something too that was a really good question. We're going to dive in. So the first question, it's just literally like an open mic night, just questions that you guys had. There's no topic, there's no concept, this isn't like a theme, it's just answering questions. So someone's question was, waking up with high blood sugar in the morning, what do I do about this? And there's a couple things that could be happening here if you have high blood sugar in the morning. I'm imagining that either you're feeling that effect or you're just tracking your blood glucose with a little finger prick molecule or monitor. So there's a couple things you're probably like either experiencing or you just know because you're tracking it. And one of the things that could be happening is that you're fasting. Now, I know this sounds really counterintuitive to a lot of people because they thought that they're doing fasting to kind of help balance blood sugar. That is true. That is very true. People use things like intermittent fasting to help regulate blood sugar. However, think of it like this, that when you're fasting, you are stimulating a hormone called glucagon, and that will promote basically pulling glucose out of the tissues and dumping it into the bloodstream. And so it promotes glucose synthesis, or even taking fat that's been stored and it puts it into the bloodstream. And the analogy I really like to give is, how do you think that you're losing weight with fasting? How do you think you're losing weight with fasting? Where does all that fat or adipose go? Well, we basically take it from stored tissue, break it down. It's kind of like you take a big, I'm using this analogy because this is just what comes to me, a big iceberg, and you're just chipping away at the iceberg. Well, in the process of getting rid of that sugar, you're dumping it into the bloodstream, right? In the process of taking away stuff from your muscles and your intramuscles and your extracellular fluid and all the places that you can have some stored glucose, you're gathering it to raise it in the blood before it comes out of the body. Okay, then we'll dump it out of the body through urination. So that could be what's going on, is that you're actually doing long bouts of intermittent fasting, which is going to promote glucose coming out as a byproduct or as a mechanism of action that's short-lived. This concept also happens with people that have high cholesterol. So people that have high cholesterol, sometimes what happens is when they're losing weight, when they're losing weight, usually a significant amount of weight, they'll actually have higher levels of lipids in their blood. And they're like, why is my blood work looking worse? Why does my cholesterol profile look higher? My total cholesterol went up, my HDL, which is the good guy, went down, my LDLs went up. Why would that be the case if I've lost 20 or 30 pounds? Same concept, that in the process of losing those cholesterol esters, you had to break them or steal them from someplace and put them somewhere else. You put them in the bloodstream first before they get dumped out of the body. We actually poop out cholesterol. That's how we get rid of it. So sometimes there's a transient effect to metabolic changes that happen, like intermittent fasting for a long period of time, and then also doing things that are changing the way your body's metabolism is actually going to work. Another factor that could be happening, there's actually a lot of reasons. This is not a simple answer, but another thing that could be happening is that you are waking up really anxious and waking up really stressed, and you're liberating cortisol. Now, oftentimes I find this with people that have a lot of anxiety, is they have high levels of glucose in their blood and they're not eating the sugar, right? A lot of people get very confused because there's like, why is my blood sugar elevated on my lab work? I don't really eat sugar. In fact, I'm in ketosis, or I'm on a carb restricted diet. Why would my glucose be elevated? Well, because what could be happening is that you're dumping sugar as a stress response. You're responding to stress. And analogy to think about this that helps people is that, imagine right now I'm in my home, I'm relaxed, I'm calm, I'm kind of just like maintenance with my blood chemistry, nothing too crazy is happening, and then a bear runs into the house. In in effort to get me to move away from the situation, I will dump sugar. I will dump energy so that I can get out, right? Like I have to liberate energy to get out of the space that's causing stress. Now, there's no real bears. I mean, there could be where you live, right? But the bear is the stress or the anxiety component. So what you'll also want to know about or want to be interested to kind of ask yourself is, am I waking up in a state of stress? And oftentimes if you have high blood glucose, you also have high cortisol. Now, cortisol is one of the hormones that everyone knows about. It's probably the most common talked about hormone when it comes to stress and weight gain. A lot of people have heard about that hormone. It's a steroid hormone, and it has to do with immune modulation. So we make cortisol, cortisol, right? That ending, SOL. Well, cortisone is a anti-inflammatory constituent that people can take as injections, right? Oh, I got a cortisone shot. I got a injectable cortisone treatment. I got a cream that has hydrocortisone in it. I got corticosteroids. Cortisol is our man-made version. Cortisone is a derivative or sometimes a synthetic version. We produce both, but we're given more of the synthetic version, and it's an immune modulator. It's a stress modulator. And so for the person that asked this question about why would I be having high glucose in the morning, you also would want to look at what's going on with your energy or what's going on with anxiety, because you probably are dumping cortisol. And your morning cortisol between the hours of 7 to 9 a.m. typically lives anywhere from reference range about 6 to 19. I'll call it even 20. Anything above or below that range, we have problems. There's kind of like a fine balance to it. We don't want too low. That can cause problems. We don't want too high. Also, if you're taking some type of steroid therapy, like if you're using cortisone injections or if you're using some form of corticosteroids, that could drop your cortisol low, and as a compensatory mechanism, you're trying to overproduce more of your own cortisol, which can cause issues with blood sugar. So there's a lot that goes into blood sugar that's not diet related. I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions I see with people is they're like, oh, well, my blood sugar, I mean, I don't eat sugar, I don't eat candy, I don't eat processed carbs, I don't eat refined carbs, or maybe they're even in a calorie restricted diet with carbohydrates. And they're like, how is it that my sugar is high? There's a lot of mechanisms of action that are happening to raise glucose. Anytime you're under metabolic stress, your sugar will be elevated. So I would definitely explore a little bit more as to what other factors are going on outside just having high morning glucose. So hopefully that helps answer the question. I'm looking here because I have questions written. They're on my phone, so then I have to write them, which there's got to be a better solution to that. Because if you're filming on your phone and people are writing questions on your phone, I guess I could email them to my computer, but I don't have my computer here. It's at the office. Anyways, let's keep going here. So someone's saying, how do I get better sleep? I dream too much and it disrupts my sleep. And my answer to that, I kind of chuckled at that question because you should be dreaming. Dreaming is not a bad thing. Dreaming is not something that like is disrupting your sleep. In fact, that often if you're dreaming, you're in a state that is allowing that to happen. You're in a wave brain state that is a good place to be because you wouldn't dream if it's not the deep sleep. So I actually don't think that dreams are bad. I know that they can feel kind of disruptive in the sense that we can wake up with dreams that feel so real and so vivid. So there could be interruptions in the sleep cycle based on just the dreams, myself included. I had a really weird dream the other night. I literally woke up this morning, I guess it was last night, and I thought I ate like 12 donuts. And I woke up thinking I ate them. I was truly in the belief that I ate these donuts, and I was like, shit, I can't believe I ate all those donuts. And then I was like, wait a second, did I eat those donuts? I'm like, no, that was a really vivid dream. I went to Doology and ate like 12 donuts. I didn't really, but that was my dream. So I wouldn't necessarily be worried about that. What I would suggest, though, there's a couple things that can help with the sleep cycle. Magnesium, using some type of magnesium or melatonin. Another little tip here for people that have said, oh, I've tried melatonin, it doesn't work. We make melatonin. As humans, it's in us. You're not really taking anything that's synthetic. It's in our natural constituents. It is dose dependent. So sometimes people take too much and it does the opposite effect, or they don't take enough and it doesn't work at all. So there is a little bit of a kind of balancing of what the dosage is. I would really recommend if someone says, I tried that and it didn't work, I always want to know what brand did you try, what dose did you try, and what else is going on, right? So melatonin, magnesium could be really, really soothing. I really like this product that if you were on here yesterday, I talked about. I use it. It's called Senatol. It is magnesium glycinate. It's 250 milligrams, which is a pretty low dose. The little side effect, and most people know this with magnesium, is it's to bowel tolerance. So if we take too much magnesium, we actually can get painful stomach cramps. We can get increased activity in the stomach. We can start to hear like rumblies and noises and sometimes loose stool, as magnesium does work as a little bit of an osmotic laxative. I have magnesium and myo-inositol in my juice. So I worked out this morning. It was a really great workout. Today I did legs, and then as you guys know, I drink my greens powder as my intra workout nutrition. That's what I like to do. And then I came home, I ate, and then I always, after the workout, sip on 4 grams of inositol in the form of myo-inositol. And then this also contains 250 milligrams. They're both central nervous system balancers, so they can help. Now, when it comes to sleep, there's so many things that could be going on. Like, there's never one cure. I find that that's probably the most variable thing when we're talking about how to help someone with sleep. So magnesium, melatonin is helpful, sometimes even CBD, cannabidiols. We have our whole natural opioid system. The best things I would suggest to work with are neurotransmitters, and sometimes some of the hormones that are governing kind of wakefulness and things that are working on the RAS, which is part of the nervous system that's involved with like being alert or being kind of unalert or unmotivated. GABA, G-A-B-A, GABA aminobutyric acid. GABA, G-A-B-A, is also very supportive and can be helpful, as it's a very soothing neurotransmitter. A lot of times if people have low serotonin levels as well, they're not going to sleep. Serotonin is one of the most kind of affected neurotransmitters when it comes to a lot of things. Anxiety and stress, even sometimes dieting, extreme dieting can cause a drop in serotonin. So those are things that could be helpful for someone. I would really look at the neurotransmitter system, and that would be kind of my start place. Things like magnesium and, compounds that are soothing are always great as adjunct therapies, but sometimes they're not strong enough, right? Like a lot of people say CBD didn't work for me, or magnesium didn't help me, or inositol didn't help me, right? We'd kind of have to pull out the big guns in terms of that. Hi, Midge! Best supplement to take when going through trauma to help with stress. So this is a really great question, and I really recommend, especially as you're processing some stuff that could be traumatic, one of the places that trauma gets stored in the body, it's really everywhere, right? It's in kind of all of the cells. It's in each cell is a little hologram or a picture. Trauma is really an important factor when it comes to healing immune system, autoimmune conditions like lupus or MS or Hashimoto's. There is a statistic I just read, and I just posted a YouTube video about this, that 80% of people that have autoimmune conditions have some bigger T traumas, right? Everyone, somebody brought this up to me the other day. They're like, everyone has trauma. Like, who doesn't have trauma, right? And the reality is that's true to some degree. There's different levels of it. But it also is true that not everybody interprets the trauma the same way. And that interpretation of the story or the memory of it is the thing that people can struggle the most with. So I really like to make sure that when you're going through that, do a really good quality, high amount of greens powder. The one I like is by a brand called Greens First. It's available online. It's available on my website. You really can get it anywhere. But the reason I like to use greens and like a high amount, you might be like, why would I take greens? It's because the liver is the organ that oftentimes holds a lot of anger and resentment as the emotional place. So every organ has a little bit of an emotional component associated with it. The liver is anger, it's fire, it's heat, it's rage, it's aggression. So we think about some things that would work on the liver as you're going through trauma. So like berberine and milk thistle and dandelion would be helpful. the way I kind of interpret it with trauma, and I ask my patients to share with me, what's the primary emotion, right? Is it fear? Is it anxiousness? Is it I'm angry? Like, what's the emotion? Because then we can go into the organ and help with the organ. So for example, the kidney is actually a lot of fear. So kidney types of herbs and things that could help the kidney are things like uva ursi, meadowsweet. There's a lot of like supportive things that could help. Hydrangea. I would really think about the prominent emotion that's associated with the stressor and the trauma, right? Like, is it fear? Is it rage? Is it like shut down? And then we'd go to the organ that's corresponded to that and help support the organ. So I would say though, if someone's not sure about that, because sometimes it's hard to figure out what is the primary emotion of why I'm feeling this way, liver, I would start with liver health. Now, it's really interesting because I actually use a liver cleanse in the practice, and I'm working on getting everyone's verbal consent and written consent if I could do this, because it would be so funny. It's funny and not funny. Whenever I do a liver cleanse, I always tell them, please be mindful. And in the one that I use, it talks about why we would do a cleanse: chemical, physical, and emotional stress. Well, what are the chemical stressors? Well, pollutants and metals and mycotoxins and solvents and pesticides and herbicides and glyphosate, right? Those are like the chemical ones. The physical ones are going to be things like an ailment, right? Like a broken bone or something that physically happened. And then emotional is also something that they recognize in this particular cleanse: unresolved trauma, unhappy relationships. And whenever I tell them, we go through the cleanse together, I give the little prequel of what we're doing. They laugh at the anger part. They're like, no way am I going to feel angry from this cleanse. And I'm like, I'm just letting you know, right? As the expectation, I like to always create the expectations around what our intention is. So when you do the liver cleanse, you may get emotional, you may get moody. I have recordings on my voicemail at the office of people that have called me when they're on typically day 3 or 4 of their liver cleanse, and are like, I'm so angry, I'm so moody, I'm so irrational. Now, they're not doing anything, they're eating. So it's not like, oh, well, what else are they doing? They're cleaning that liver, which is basically an organ that traps toxins, right? That's what the job of the liver is it makes things more available to us in a less toxic form through a process called conjugation. So the liver is an organ that's constantly working. It's open 24 hours a day, right? It's always doing its job to cleanse, to clean, to heal. And it also is the place that we trap anger and resentment and rage. And if you have anything skin related, like often I would say that people that have anger often have skin issues. And they can have things like eczema or perioral dermatitis or psoriasis, or even redness. They're just red. Their skin looks like flush, maybe even rosacea. A lot of those kind of classic dermatologic manifestations that are maybe like, red and fiery, and you may go to a dermatologist for, are actually coming from the liver. So that's another way to know if there's anger, is skin. Skin is the kind of associated symptoms with that. So I hope that helps answer the question a little bit. Obviously, Midge, send me a message, a text message or whatnot around that, and maybe we could help. I hope you're well. I miss you. I think about you. And that's a really good question, because that's a big one, right? As you're going through trauma and you're trying to release it, like, how do we support the body to make sure it's out? Obviously, the detox pathways, the lymphatic system has to be open. Obviously, moving the bowels, making sure we have good gut health to get rid of stuff through excretion, and then urination. So those are like the top 3 ways we get rid of stuff. So if someone's not pooping, right, like let's just pretend that they're doing all this trauma work and they're not releasing stuff, it can get trapped in the body and then get reabsorbed. So that's another one that when it comes to that, I hope it helps answer the question. Another question somebody asked is, how do I balance my hormones and lose weight when I'm in menopause? I feel like ever since I was in menopause, my cholesterol went up and things started to break in my body. I felt great before that time frame. That's a really great question. And the core of this is you have changed your metabolism. The metabolism of someone that's going through menopause is completely different. And what I mean by that is like every single organ is different. Every single hormone involved with the organs are different. So for example, progesterone drops to a level of like 0.5 when we're under menopause. Estradiol, which is the most active version of estrogen, E2 is what we call it, drops to about under 15 units in the blood work. We have a massive drop of sex hormones. Testosterone can drop, not as often though. You know, it's interesting. Women that are even in postmenopause, they have levels of testosterone. It's usually just the progesterone and the estrogen that really get diminished. So that's happening. The thyroid starts to get a little bit sluggish. The liver, which is processing thyroid hormones, gets a little bit sluggish. The liver is also producing 1.5 liters of cholesterol a day. There's a lot happening. So when it comes to someone that's saying, how do I help myself during this process, there's actually a lot of metabolic work to do. We need to address the level of the ovary, which is where we produce most of these sex hormones. Now, even with women that are fully in menopause, whether it's medically induced menopause or let's just pretend that they had a hysterectomy, a full hysterectomy, maybe they don't have their ovaries anymore, you can still have levels of estrogen and progesterone in the blood, and the adrenal system makes that. There's some connection there. Now, the cholesterol, the reason that goes a little haywire is because cholesterol is how we make all sex hormones. So every single sex hormone, estrogen, testosterone, pregnenolone, progesterone, every single sex hormone, DHEA, which is more of a adrenal hormone, gets synthesized by cholesterol. So cholesterol is the parent. It's a 22 carbon molecule. It's the parent hormone that makes all of the other hormones. So what happens is that the cholesterol can go up as a feedback to trying to make more hormones. It's sensing, wait a second, the progesterone's low, the estradiol's low. What's going on here? Why are these low? It's going to crank out more cholesterol to try to make more hormones, and that doesn't work. So there's a lot going on, and I think that really working with someone, because it's not a simple fix, right? Like, I don't want to just say, oh, you should just like drop your calories, because it's not a calorie thing. A lot of people think that the only way to lose weight or change their body composition is calorie restriction. That's not true, right? Like, a lot of women that are in menopause are telling me they're barely eating. They're barely eating and they're still gaining weight. Well, because there's metabolic problems, AKA there's likely some thyroid stress. Maybe there's some ovary stress. We know the hormones all just drop. That's what they do. Never, ever, ever does someone in menopause have hormones that go up. Never. It's kind of like saying, in the morning when I wake up, is it possible the moon will be out at 8 a.m.? Never, never, never. I mean, I guess the moon is out, right? But you guys get the point, is that no, the sun's out. It's just like the laws of life that we're governing. So that is something that I would really encourage to think about when it comes to just like all the things that are happening in the body. It's not one thing. It's helping the hormones. Now, a lot of people do very well with balancing out progesterone. So we can give progesterone. I like using progesterone in practice. It really helps with hot flashes and some of the symptoms. You can have issues with progesterone and not have the side effects. And what I mean by that is a lot of women are like, no, I'm 2 years into menopause. I've already gone through the phase where I've had the hot flashes and the hair loss. That's not happening for me anymore. It's not outwardly happening in that regard, right? Those symptoms are not outwardly happening in that regard, but they're still happening. And we need progesterone, because with low progesterone, what can happen is we can get heart palpitations. We can get joint pain. We can get headaches with low progesterone. Actually, that's one of the most common things, is like headaches. So there's a lot that we want to maybe help you with when it comes to how can we get you the hormones that you still require, even though you don't have them in the same amounts because you're no longer in your reproductive stages. We still have a metabolic need for this. And one of the things, which is the next question on here, is this one really breaks my heart. Really, this one breaks my heart. This one really, like, this one bothers me a lot. There's not a lot of things that I get worked up about. Actually, there is. I'm passionate, but this really makes me mad, like really angry. When doctors, right? We'll call them doctors, and they are doctors, tell young women that they don't need a period. You don't need a period, right? That's what they've been told. So they recommend birth control, and they say, you don't need a period. Just take all your birth control pills and never cycle off them. And there's a lot of women out there that I work with that are young ladies that are cycling, and they just skip the week of the placebo in their birth control packs, and they never have a period. That is dangerous and very, very foolish. And you're doing a very strong disservice to someone. I'm really, really passionate about how horrible that is as a suggestion. If you are on birth control and your doctor believes that you should not have a period, please run the other way quickly. That is not physiologically healthy. That is not the normal laws of life. And somewhere along the lines, science intervened way too much and told women that you don't need this and you don't need that. These are the laws that we're working with. The sun will come up and the sun will go down whether you like it or not. The earth is rotating, right? These are just governing laws of life. And to not have a period is running the risk for future osteopenia in young adults. Obviously, issues with cardiovascular health. There's always risk factors for cardiovascular health, stroke, heart attack when you're on birth control, and potentially ruining the cycle in the place of wanting to have babies in the future. It can change the hormones so much so that women develop amenorrhea, or what's called post-pill amenorrhea, or what's called post-birth control syndrome, where they come off these birth controls and they think, I'm just going to stop taking my birth control. I'm ready to get pregnant now. And their period never comes back. And the reason it never comes back is because you've just been on something for 14 years that's been synthetic and has been masking your body's own ability to ovulate or to have healthy levels of luteinizing hormone or follicle stimulating hormone. You're no longer going through that phase. You're no longer making that cyst in that follicle and then rupturing it. At ovulation, there's peaks of other neurotransmitters that are healthy that make us feel good. And a lot of women that do not have a period have an increased risk for anxiety, like massive, massive anxiety. So there is a catch-22. Now, obviously consult with your provider around what is the best thing for you. But I will tell you that if it's not bleeding, that's not the answer. Okay, there's ways to navigate that. If it was, well, I had really painful periods, you'd want to address that first. Taking a synthetic pill to fix your imbalanced hormones is not the solution. You don't add hormones into an imbalanced system. It's not the answer. So that is really, really something that makes me deeply sad. And as a female, as a woman, as someone that works with women, the energy of it, right? There's so many things energetically that we follow the moon, and it's a shedding and it's an energetic release. And it's a sacred process to have a menstrual cycle, and it's been demonized in our culture. And we've been told to take bleached chemicals and stick them, in the vaginal canal, and don't have a period. And periods are inconvenient, right? Like, oh, you want to go on your trip this weekend and you don't want to have a menstrual cycle. It makes me crazy. So clearly you can see I'm passionate. I'm going to digress. There's a lot of people outside walking today, and my patio is open. I love how we're talking about birth control and there's a screaming child outside. If you guys hear that. So please, 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 if you're like, you know what, I need to fix my hormones and I need help with my period, and I understand there's a metabolic need for a menstrual cycle, please connect with someone that practices holistic medicine, functional medicine, because they will help you so much with the menstrual cycles, and whether it's painful periods or having too high testosterone. A lot of times sex hormones get involved, and sometimes it's a quick fix and boom, the period's back. Or sometimes women are bleeding too much, right? There's a lot that we can do though in that regard when it comes to hormones. So the question is really, how can I balance my hormones and not be on birth control? And there is a little bit of an awakening around women that are kind of like, what else can I do for my menstrual cycle? Like, what other options are there if I'm having so much pain, if I'm having heavy bleeding, if I'm not bleeding enough, right? Like, what are options? There are options, but you need to bleed every month, not just from a bone perspective, not just from a mood perspective, not just from a sleep perspective, but your reproductive hormones do not work in isolation. And if you're not having healthy levels of them, problems will arise in other areas. The digestive system gets involved. The microbiome gets involved. It's not just like one thing. Oh, I didn't take my birth control, so, I'm going on a vacation next week. No big deal. That's a big deal. That's a very, very big deal. And you should take that not lightly. I don't take that lightly when I have women that come into the practice that tell me they're on birth control. And sometimes I've done this in my practice, that if someone doesn't want to get off birth control, that's fine, right? We have to be supportive to the goal. But could we still have a balance to that, right? Like, could we still help them balance their hormones even while being on something synthetic? Yes. Absolutely, there's ways to do it. What about if you have an IUD? I'm not a big fan of IUDs either, especially if they're hormonal. Unfortunately, I'm a little biased because I don't think that we should be putting synthetic hormones in our body. There's a lot of research to show that even though it depends, some IUDs are non-chemical, they're just inflammatory. They don't produce hormones. Most of them are hormonal IUDs. And there's a lot of research that shows that they're damaging and they're hurting the hormones. And like I said, I see women that are late 30s that are already doing DEXA scans and have low bone density and low bone mass and are at risk for developing other problems. So I'm really not the person to ask. I like natural birth planning. If you are tracking your menstrual cycle as it should be healthy and between 25 to 35 days, then you're able to actually balance out the hormones by tracking them and understanding the kind of natural physiologic response. I am 34 years old. I've never been on birth control in my entire life, and I've never had any potential issues with pregnancies or scares like that. I've always done natural birth planning options, and I'm not saying that because, that's the better option, but truly it is. It truly is. I really feel that way. I feel very strongly about female hormones and the sacredness of the process of health in that regard. So I hope that was helpful with some of the questions. There are more here, but I feel like this is going to be really long. I think I've been on here now for 45 minutes. But if you have more questions, guys, I'll put the little thing in the story, the little chat bar, and then you could ask questions as they arise, and we can talk more about all the things when it comes to periods, whatever it is, right? Weight loss, hormone issues, birth control, post-pill amenorrhea, whatever you want to talk about, we can kind of dive into. So I will see you on the flip side. And then, like I said, if you have questions, please let me know. I'm also looking for topics for YouTube content. I have information bias, and I forget what I do know and what I don't know, and I forget what people want to talk about. So if you have comments, let me know topics and we'll talk about it. Thanks, Shira Gift, sending love and light. You too, Midge. I miss you. I hope everything is well with you. Hopefully I'll see you soon at another ayahuasca ceremony. Let me know what your plans are if you have any plans to go. Always good to hear from you. You're amazing. Oh, Carrie, so are you. I was watching your video, actually, Carrie, yesterday of working out. I think you were doing row pulls. It looked really hard. I'm like, Carrie's working. She's working hard as she always is. Hi, Dr. Tom. Hello, Mike. Mike, I answered your question in here about sleep, so check it out. Watch this later. You popped on probably after. Menstrual health is health. Yes, lotus flower fishes. That's true. That's really true. Let me go back for a second. Hold on. I think I missed a question. Do you have any thoughts with taking raw liver as supplement? I love it. Actually, the person I would follow, Liver King. Follow the Liver King here on Instagram. I just found his page. Oh my gosh, I'm obsessed with him, Liver King. He eats livers left and right. He's jacked. He's so into nature and health. I love him. Check out Liver King on Instagram because he would probably be a little bit of a better referral to figure out what products to take. He eats real livers. Can you get desiccated liver extract? Yes, Standard Process has a lot of that stuff. Livers are great, but you want to get a good healthy liver because obviously they're the organ of detox. So if you're eating a crappy organ from a crappy animal who ate a crappy diet, who ate a lot of chemicals and pesticides and herbicides, you don't want to be eating their detox pathway organ that's filled with toxins. So check out the Liver King. If you can't find him, let me know. And you're going to love him. I'm laughing because he's so great. He's literally so great. I wake up and I'm excited. I'm like, what is he sharing with us today? He's a really cool guy. All right, guys. See you soon. Bye.